Hey there, guys. Welcome to another segment of Michael and Gabby Show. Guys, tonight, today, the morning, afternoon, evening, whenever time you are watching this, get ready because we're going to talk about the do's and the don'ts of communicating with your spouse.
And guys, miscommunication is one of the top reasons why married couples get into conflict. And so we're going to be sharing with you guys tips that we've learned and we've applied in our own marriage and things that we've learned from this amazing book called
Love and Respect. Thank you so much, Dr. Emerson, because I have employed what you have written in here.
It's good, guys.
And it has been a blessing. And we're not even done. Like we're just here. There's just been so much, guys. So it's gonna be good. So one thing that's so amazing from there, he makes a point about blue and glasses and pink glasses, or maybe blue lens and pink lens. But pretty much, as guys, I'm wearing a blue shirt, so I like to see things in blue, and then Gabby sees things in pink, and so I can't see things in pink. I'm seeing things in blue. She's seeing things in pink. She can't see things in blue, and so all of a sudden, miscommunication ends up happening. And so this is why this video is going to be super duper important to watch. We're going to share some tips that we've attained thus far, do's and don'ts regarding communicating with your spouse. So what's the first one, Gabby?
So the first tip that we're going to share, this is actually Michael, I want you to guess this.
Ooh, okay.
This is a word that Michael hates whenever I use it, and I use it quite often, guys. It's something I shouldn't use. So.
All right, I'm going to give you guys, the audience, to have 5 seconds to guess what that word or combination of words are. If you are correct, you will enter into a raffle. No, I'm just kidding. There's no raffle. I hate hearing the word always and never. Now, if it was in the positive light, like, oh, you're always so amazing, I would love to hear that word. Or you're never bad. Oh, my gosh, guys, I would love to hear that. But that's not the case.
Yeah, guys, so I usually use that a lot. So whenever Michael does stupid things, and there's some patterns that he does do oftenly, but I tend to be like, oh my gosh, you always do that. Why do you always do that? You never do this, or you always do that. And the reality is it's not always and it's not never. And so it's always good to not use those words because it's first of all, it is condescending. And second of all, it's never always and never. It ends up offending you, I know, because then you're like, am I always like that? And I'm like, no.
Yes, and as men, man, we question those things. Like as when my wife says things like that, like, babe, you always do this in a negative way. And I admit, guys, there has been many faults of mine. So I own up to those things. But when in responding to always and never, now I've come to the point where it's like, all right, I'm not gonna get mad. Because before, guys, I would just get mad. I'm like, yo, it's not always and it's not never. Maybe 90%. But that's 10% that is not automatically disqualifies always and never. So that's definitely one of the things not to do when you're communicating, because that only stirs up fire. And not the good kind of fire. It's like you're actually, you're putting gasoline in the fire. And when you're communicating or trying to communicate and get closer together, that's not the way to do it. So
no, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second point, Michael, you can share.
So this is where this book, thank you, Dr. Emerson, has come great into play. Husbands, if you are watching this right now, or wives, if you're watching this right now, go and find your husband, if he's not watching it right now, and just send him this tidbit. You will thank me. Well, you really thank Dr. Emerson because I got it from him. But one of the things that my wife loves to hear when we are in the process of communicating in the midst of an argument is when I take the time to say, hey, babe, did I come across as unloving to you?
Guys, that totally softens my heart. The moment he says that, I'm like, jaw drop, oh my gosh, he cares.
Yeah, guys,
that will soften your wife's heart, definitely. And in the book, he talks about it, how as wives, we want to be loved, right? And men, they want to be respected. And so when wives don't feel loved, they don't respect their husbands, and it's just like this crazy cycle. But like when as husbands, like when Michael says like, oh, did that come off unloving, like all of a sudden like my anger and my guards like up is like all down, you know, and I just start to be like, oh,
Right, because
he
that's
wants to love me.
right, like that's the moment. Because as men, we like to be respected. That's why in the Bible it mentions that regarding respect, and I mean, obviously, we love being loved. Women, my wife, like, is amazing at expressing her love. But I really, as men, we just really love respect. That's just something that's been ingrained, and women have this intrinsic need to feel loved. And so when I do things that I don't know because I got the blue on, I got the blue glasses on, and I'm not communicating the right way, I may be hurting my wife. Actually, there was a morning time, I believe 2 months ago, Gabby was at a little volunteer event, and there was like a breakfast thing. I'm coming to pick her up. And I did not know that apparently while I was talking on the phone with her, and I was finding GPS to get to the location. Now for me, I can't talk and do GPS to a brand new location at all, y'all. But I did it, but I didn't realize that my tone and the way that I was talking on the phone was not in a loving manner towards Gabby. So the moment that I pick her up, I notice that something's off. And instead of just being like, yo, like, what's happening? Like, you okay? And like, I actually was able to be like, hey babe, like, did I come across as unloving to you? Eventually I had to go there because at first there was a quiet phase, and I'm like, I know something's up. Lord, help me here.
So I told him how I felt, and usually when we're talking, like I always express how I feel. But there has been times where Michael will like try to justify his act, and that's it. He'll like, explain why.
Yes.
But this time the difference that you did was like, oh, like, did I come off unloving?
But yes, that is how it turned out. And thank God that I read this book.
And Michael's used it too many times as well in other situations. Like, oh, or another good thing to say too is like, how can I be loving to you? Right? How can I make you feel loved? That's also another great thing too. So either way, that's a good do.
Yeah, so husbands, definitely do that when you see your wife in such a way. Don't be insensitive, but instead, like, reaffirm her that what you want to do is connect with her and extend your love towards her and show her love. The moment she receives that, then it's like this, y'all. You see, she's already drawing close to me. All right, so number 3.
Okay, so the third one, this is for the wives. This is a good do. So wives, a good thing to say to your husbands is, how can I respect you more? Or I'm sorry for disrespecting you. Or did that come off disrespectful? So I know, like, I don't think I've ever used that, but I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry for disrespecting you, right? And then Michael starts, because honestly, like, as women, our intention isn't to disrespect our husbands. Usually it's just us wanting to express how we feel, but in the midst of expressing how we feel, it comes off disrespectful, right? And so saying, hey, sorry, I didn't mean to disrespect you, that shows the husband, like, oh, okay, you know, it helps him. It kind of like for the women, it's like, oh, did I come off unloving? Like for us, it's like, oh, we like chill. For the husbands, it's like, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah, sorry for disrespecting you. And guys, like, that's so pivotal because we found that ever since employing these things in our conversations, we're so easily able to diffuse arguments like with great ease. Whereas before, it was just difficult in the beginning of our marriage. So praise God for that. That was a really, really beneficial instrumental moment for our marriage.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So number 4. We're gonna go to number 4, y'all. Number 4 has to do with husbands.
Mostly husbands.
Mostly husbands. I know some wives can do this too. But do not, in the midst of an argument, stonewall your wife or your husband, your spouse in general. Don't stonewall them, and don't leave.
In case people don't know what stonewall is, basically it's when you
imagine you're talking to a stone wall.
Yeah.
They're not gonna respond unless it's a really cool stone wall that's like has little gadgetry and all that stuff. And no, but that's not the case at all. So one of the things that is so important is that you want to be able, like, if we're trying to like actually communicate, that means that like there has to be, in order for communication to be done, there has to be a sender and a receiver. And if there is no two-way, if I'm the only one talking to Gabby, there's no communication that's happening because
Right.
she's not responding back. And so one of the things that you may be prone to do is stonewall and just be quiet and try to ignore it. And whether that's because you just want to avoid problems or arguments altogether, even if that's the case, it's still unhealthy.
Right.
And if you end up pushing it off, maybe you guys will get restored after like 2 days or 3 days. But what if then resentment or bitterness begins to build in?
Right.
You know, and that's 2 or 3 days where you guys could have been having a blast together, and suddenly now you miss out on that time because
That's
you
true.
decided to stonewall.
We've actually never had fought for more than, I would even say, a couple hours.
Yeah, just a couple hours.
Yeah, but I know that there's a lot of married couples that I've heard, or even if you're dating, that your arguments last for days, and I think it's because of the lack of communication. Like, I understand if you're super heated, take some time to pray. I think we had done that once in our married and relationship, where we had to be like, okay, let's just spend alone time and then get back together. But I think it is important. I think Michael does a great job with this, better than myself, because there's times where I just don't want to like talk or share. But Michael's always been intentional with, like, even if he has to stay up, late at night to just listen in, and it's been an amazing thing. And the beauty of it too is when we communicate, right, and we share our feelings, we get to learn from it and grow from it, right? We get revelation from it that helps us in total with understanding each other more, because communication is about understanding one another. And that's why there's a lot of miscommunication that happens, is because we don't completely understand one another, and the thing is, with life, we grow too, we change, so it's really a journey. But I love it when Michael's always intentional with doing that.
I love you guys. She's so patient with me, man. Thank you, Lord, for giving her great patience.
I see the same to you too.
Yeah, so yeah, and especially during night times, man, those arguments are the worst, because like you want to sleep and everything in your body is like, man, why are we having this discussion right now? We could be sleeping right now. But blessed are the peacemakers. You got to go after it. Closeness.
And it also improves for the married folks, your sex life.
Yes, it does. But we're not talking about that right now. That'll be for another segment. But yes, it does. Like, full-blown improvement. Now, one thing that
this
Gabby...
is the 5th tip, by the way,
this
which
is
ties
number 5, which ties into this, and kind of ties into the whole, like, have I been unloving, or even like, oh, have I been disrespectful, is communicating in the manner of questioning to understand. So a lot of time miscommunication is simply there is missing communication. There is a misunderstanding in what we've communicated. So I may have said something that I intended it to be this manner. Gabby received it in the way that I did not intend, and therefore miscommunication has occurred. And so oftentimes we're getting better at it. We can pick those things up, and the moment that it happens, that's when we can ask the questions like, oh, what did I say that made you feel this way?
Right. Or what did I do?
What did I do that made you feel this way? Now, when you ask that question, now you're actually seeking to understand the source of why they're reacting in that manner.
Right.
And oftentimes, over time, or depending on your past experiences, you might look at your spouse in a different way, like, oh, they're always doing this, or they're always the bad guy, or they're always after me, or they always just want to start stuff. And those things are just wrong mindsets, but unfortunately, that's what ends up happening over time sometimes if you're not careful. And so a quick way to completely nip that in the butt is to simply say, hey, what did I do? What did I say that made you feel this way? Because that way, now they're like, oh, okay, they're trying to understand me.
That's a good point, because when the person who asked that question, it actually helps the person asking the question to be in the other person's shoes, like your other spouse's shoes. Because like what you said, whenever you do that with me and I share and open my heart, you understand, like, oh, okay, now I know why she's feeling this way.
Yeah.
It is no longer like, oh, Gabby was just trying to like be annoying or like be mean, whatever. But then he's like, okay, she's coming from a place of hurt. Yeah. Right? So then it softens Michael's heart to be able to be like, oh, okay, now I understand. So it works like both ways. And for the person who is explaining, it also helps you to make sure that because you know when you get emotional, you just kind of be like, you always do this, or like whatever. But then like when you really think about it, like you get to be practical, like, okay, well, it was when you did this, and it's not like you don't. That question helps you to not over exaggerate your point, which can happen.
Yeah, and it helps you to avoid doing things that cause them to feel that way. So it helps greatly. Now, number 6.
Yes, the 6th point, which is going to be the last point we're going to be covering, is this is now something that you should not say, right? We've been sharing you some do's, some don'ts. This is a don't.
This is like a super don't.
So this is my word that I get like super annoyed when Michael uses it. And it's when he says, you should have. Oh my goodness. Like that even sounds like
guys, it stings.
I should put like the mirror breaking right now.
Yes. Yes. Now why is this you should have? Give us context.
Okay, you should have whenever we are in an argument, for example, and I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe people who use this tactic, like Michael, for example, that says you should have, it's more so to justify yourself, to get yourself out of...
It was me trying to win the conversation.
Right.
And we're not... When you're trying to communicate, guys, through an argument, who cares about winning? Like, winning means you guys resolve the argument. It doesn't mean that your point won. It doesn't mean that, oh, I'm right, you're wrong. Right. That is not a win. So,
yeah, and I think, too, like, it's just so important that when we're communicating with our spouse, our intention should be reconnection, reconciliation, not justification. Yeah. Because when we try to justify ourselves, you actually create boundaries. When you try to justify yourself, all you care about is yourself, your perspective, and it helps you to not connect with the other person.
And that's where the you should have has come in place. Guys, I've used you should have so many times, and now I'm learning not to do it because it's like being equipped with this knowledge, you know, being able to now navigate through a conversation and argument. It can be very easy to have this extra like space in my mind where I'm like, okay, if I say this, I may stir up some wrong feelings, but man, I'm feeling like, I'm feeling offended, I'm feeling hurt. I think, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to say it, babe. You should have. Like, guys, done. Now I've added like maybe an hour or 2 more hours into this argument and the resolution thereof. And gladly, I mean, thank God we resolve it. But had I simply abstained from using the word, you should have done this, things would have been much better.
It was like he was on a good roll, right? I'm trying to understand. And the moment he said that, I was like, okay.
It's like it was about to be diffused like this. And all of a sudden, you should have.
Only because also his you should have was an excuse, you know, and you could tell clearly. So it's like, especially if you guys know it's an excuse, don't try it because it does inflame things.
Yeah, it does.
Well, guys, I think at the end of the day, like the reason why we wanted to do this talk is because communication is so important. And, you know, even when I was in my prayer time, the Lord had I shared it with Michael, but the Lord had brought up the verse James 1:19. And the Lord was showing me that the key to communication is living out James 1:19, which says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And guys, like that's the formula. If you are quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, that will help a lot of miscommunication issues. And like we recently just went through that. Just very, very recent.
Right, guys, like last night recently.
And it's just like crazy because like when we both think about it, like if we both were just more quick to listen to each other, slow to anger, aka being patient, and slow to speak, it would have solved a lot of the argument and issues. And the problem is with miscommunication, many times it's like, at least with the issue that we had, I guess I had said something that Michael did not understand. It didn't come across to him. And then literally like then we start brushing our teeth in the bathroom and he literally says the same thing when I was like, I told you that I'm okay. And so in my mind I was just like, okay, like this is not, you know, he's not understanding me, he doesn't care anymore, right? And in reality he never got my first point to begin with. And so that was a miscommunication. But even in the midst of us trying to resolve the issue, I was already just like, I don't really care what you have to say, this is how I feel, right? I wasn't quick to listen. And then Michael wasn't slow to anger, and so it just escalated things. Yeah, so I think, like, it's just so important when, you know, yes, it's okay to, like, share our heart and express our heart, but we also want to make sure that our heart's intention is to listen to our spouse, right? Sorry, one more verse I did want to share, too, is Proverbs 18:2, which says, "A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart." And I feel like many times we try to express ourselves without taking the time to really understand what our spouse is really meaning to. And, you know, like have more grace. I know there's times where like I don't want to extend grace. I'm like, I'm just upset. But, you know, like in those times with communication, the heart of it has to be there, right? And so we hope that these tips helped you guys to be able to connect with one another.
It's helped us to connect. That even last night, guys, we can go from what we experienced last night to making a video for y'all the next day, completely fine and normal. Why? Because we employ these things, and you want resolution. Just think every single argument or every single point of conflict, just think of it that as an opportunity for you to grow closer to one another, and that's really what it's all about. I think it's just phenomenal to have been able to be experiencing all of this. Obviously, we don't want to be in arguments. We don't want to be in conflict. But as time goes on, those things are bound to happen. And as you navigate through those things, you'll find this richer love in your spouse. You'll be able to grow in ways that you've never known before. And ultimately, everything that happens here within your marriage, it embodies the coming marriage too, you know, with us as the bride and Jesus the bridegroom. And guys, so we just really want you guys to go out there, do the right things in your communication, and ensure that the sanctity of your marriage, you know, love, everything is just overflowing, that communication would just be at the forefront, that you guys would just derive in your relationship.
And guys, we want to hear from you all. What are some tips that you've learned, right? Share below in the comments. Let us know what are some other tips, because I know there's a lot more tips. We only shared with you 6.
Yeah.
So let us know what things worked or didn't work, right? So other people can read that. And don't forget to also subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can also get updates on what we're doing. And it's also a great way to support us.
Yes, and guys, we also have some blogs and Instagram up right now as well. So on Instagram, you can find us on Michael and Gabby, and on website, michaelandgabby.com. And so this year, we're going to start ramping up and getting those things out there for you guys as well. So check it out. Love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to us. So God bless. Take care until the next video. See you guys later.
Bye.